Listener discretion is advised. Hi everyone, welcome back to the I Should Totally Be Dead Right Now podcast, where we tell true stories of survivors of true crime, natural disasters, and everything else in between. So this week we actually have Michelle's good friend Geoff. So welcome, Geoff.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. And I just like to point out that I did it my first go.
Woo! Nailed it.
Intro.
So we're gonna do a quick little shot of some Irish cream. That delicious. I don't even know fucking what kind of Irish cream. It's like 5 Farms. I don't know. I love it. I almost choked because I laughed.
Oh,
I hope you're happy.
Well, also, instead of shots, we actually had a drink suggestion from Geoff.
We have Wallaby Darns. No,
Wallaby
yeah, I kept wanting to call them something else. Not Wallaby Dang It. God damn it, because that's all I can think of now.
Yeah.
So they are 5 Farms.
Yeah.
I nailed it.
Yeah.
Fucking. I think it's made by Jameson. I think Jameson brews it. We're still talking about the delicious Irish cream.
Product of Ireland. 17% alcohol volume. Pretty good. Okay, anyway, so the drink suggestion Geoff did.
Yeah, so it's like an Outback drink, right? Mm-hmm. And it has Peach Schnaps. We did peach vodka instead of regular vodka, and I feel like that was an excellent choice. Mm-hmm. Champagne, and what else? Peach Nectar,
and
frozen peaches, and ice, and then blend it up into a delicious drink that we've now drank 2 blenders worth.
Yeah.
I think we've had about 6 drinks apiece. I think it's pretty close to that.
They're little
Sounds
cups,
right.
though.
They are little cups, and they have bees on them.
To make yourself feel better.
That's true. I usually do that.
And if you would like the recipe, check it out on our Instagram and Facebook page at I Should Totally Be Dead Right Now. So, Michelle, I'm gonna fucking kill you. Okay.
Caitlin is already angry with me. I feel like there's going to be a survival story for myself before the end of this podcast.
Is you getting stabbed?
Yeah.
Well, that's my story today, is just how I've survived you. All the time. Because every time we're together, you threaten to murder me or stab me in the face.
Well, you deserve it!
Wow. Nobody's denying that. It's just the fact that I've survived it up until now.
So I'm going to go first, and Geoff wants to go second. You probably have like a few little stories, yeah?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's keep it to 2, maybe.
Or 4.
We'll look at the time. Okay. This story is about Aimee Copeland. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Aimee Copeland.
And it's May 1st of 2012.
Okay.
You were born then.
I was, in fact, born. I was fairly old by that point.
She's 24 years old and working 3 part-time jobs to help pay her way through graduate school.
So why didn't she just get one full-time job?
You know.
God damn it. She's making her way through the world today.
Yeah.
And it takes everything she's got.
So she's going to school at the University of West Georgia.
Okay.
So after her shift at the cafe, that's one of the jobs, she went to her friend's house, and her name is Sunny, and her boyfriend and her had a big fight, so that's why she came over to her house. You know.
I had a friend named Kelly, and her sister's name was Sunny.
That's cute.
Is the cafe house on West Georgia?
I'm assuming so, yes.
Have you been to West Georgia? You probably have, huh?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
I
haven't.
So, Aimee, Sunny, and another waitress from the cafe, they're like, let's go out. So they go to a river.
Oh, I thought they were going to go clubbing or something.
No, they were like going hiking. And so as they were like hiking and looking through everything, they spot a homemade zip line over a shallow creek.
Is this the same river where they filmed Deliverance?
I don't know.
Was there banjos playing? Yeah, I think it was. Was there a banjo playing in the background?
I don't think so.
So they see a homemade zip line. So all 3 girls are like, hey, let's try it out.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, I don't feel like this is a choice I would have made at all.
No, I feel like you would have been the first one down the zip line.
No, I would have sent you first.
Aimee actually went first. And then 2 other girls went next, and it was fine.
Oh, no.
So Aimee wanted to go again, and halfway through, the rope snaps, and she falls into the rocky creek. She got a 9-inch wound just below her left knee, and she screamed for her friends that she needed to go to the hospital because blood was just spewing out of her leg. They called 911, and they got Aimee... they called 911, and once they got there, Aimee passed out from the blood loss.
Oh my God.
Doctors stapled Aimee's wound shut, bandaged it, and sent her home. Even though the cut was below her knee, she was experiencing pain in her thigh as well.
I don't like the sound of that. That doesn't sound healthy.
No. So as time passed, the pain became more intense. At 4 a.m., she could not take it anymore, and she knew something was wrong. She woke up her boyfriend, and they looked at her leg, and it was dark purple and covered in large blisters from her foot to her hip.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she has a giant gash, like, on her shin calf area.
Yeah, below her knee, yep.
Below her knee.
Mm-hmm.
And now, say again, what's all purple?
Her leg.
Her whole leg.
Her leg was dark purple, and she was covered in blisters from her foot all the way up to her hip.
Oh, Jesus.
Is that later that same, like that next
that
morning?
Night, yeah. 4 a.m. that night, yeah.
Okay.
That next morning, yeah. The room smelled like rotten eggs, and she couldn't walk on it. Her boyfriend had to carry her, and he put her over his shoulder, and they went to the hospital.
He's like, come on, bitch, we're going.
Yeah.
Sling.
Doctors quickly called her parents to tell them to get to the hospital. Aimee had a flesh-eating disease.
What?
Yes.
From what? Oh my God.
From the creek that she landed in, that she cut her leg and then...
Barf.
Mm-hmm.
So, from the water that... Oh my God, I can't even.
So this bacteria entered her wound and into her bloodstream, causing tissue damage, triggering sepsis.
Yeah.
A life-threatening
Yeah, it's
condition.
like blood poisoning, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or a blood
Yeah,
infection.
it's a blood infection, yeah.
Yeah, it's a life-threatening condition that threatened to shut down her major organs.
I'm sorry,
The next day, Aimee was airlifted to the burn center.
The burn center?
Yep, at Doctors Hospital in Augusta, where she could be placed in a hyperbaric chamber. Doctors were
okay, so what is a hyperbaric chamber? Do you know?
Yeah, hyperbaric chamber they typically use when you get the bends from scuba diving, that type of thing. It's like an oxygen therapy chamber.
Okay, so it's
and
just
with people
oxygen.
with burns, with people with burns, they put them in there because it can help the healing process.
Oh, well, oxygen does promote healing. I do know that.
They were hoping that would prevent the bacteria from spreading and boost the effect of the antibiotics that they gave her.
Did it?
Well,
it doesn't sound like perhaps not.
Her parents were en route to the hospital and then received a call from the doctors to get permission to amputate her left leg.
Oh.
Is that the leg she hurt?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. At least it's that.
Yeah.
You know, my sister's, this guy she's dating, he got like a blister, and when he was in the hospital, he ended up with like a giant infection from being in the hospital with this little tiny blister, and they fucking amputated his leg.
Well, you know, they say that like hospitals are the worst possible place you can go because if you weren't sick when you go in, you're gonna be
sick when you come
leave.
out. Yeah, I believe it.
That's awful. That's awful. Well, okay. So her parents said to do whatever they need to save her life.
Yeah, a leg or your life.
Mm-hmm. So after the surgery,
so they did amputate.
They did.
Okay.
And they did not think she was actually going to survive the night.
Oh my God.
But she did. But her face was swollen. She was swollen from head to toe. Her face and head looked like a basketball, and she had no color to her face.
Oh my God.
Then the doctors had to talk to her parents about her hands. The medicine she was taking to stabilize her blood pressure was
like making her hands rot, or what's going on?
Yes.
What?
So to stabilize her blood pressure was concentrating on her blood in her vital organs and away from her hands. So taking away from her hands and removing the foot, the veins had collapsed and her soft tissue was dying.
Okay, so
the medicine was focusing on her organs to keep her alive, so that took away from her hands.
Okay, so all the blood is just heading towards her
Pooling
core.
in the center
Yes.
core.
And, oh my God, and her veins were collapsing in her hands. That's a hard fucking pass for me.
So it was her dad that wanted to break the news to her. The doctors, they didn't want the doctors.
She's conscious
To
at
be
that
like,
point?
She was at that point,
love,
yeah.
You just lost a leg and now
she
your
was
hands are dead?
Yeah. So he held up her hands, and her hands were purple, and the ends of her fingers were curled inward, like a...
Like a dead body almost?
Yeah. And he asked her, he's like...
No.
He asked if they looked normal, and she shook her head. That's all she could really do.
They don't look normal.
No. And he said
Dad.
they were hindering her progress.
Oh my God, are they going to have to cut off her hands?
And Aimee thought about a book she read called Man's Search for Meaning. And she thought if he could survive the Holocaust, then she could survive this. So this book was about him surviving the Holocaust, so she thought, you know,
it was her inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
In an hour, she headed off to surgery. It took 5 hours, but her recovery accelerated.
So they've cut off her hands.
What about her other leg?
Nope, not the other leg, just the leg and the 2 hands.
That feels like enough.
Okay.
Poor Aimee. Continue on.
So, what was it? So she underwent more than 30 surgeries.
What?
To close all the wounds for her amputations.
Oh my
her
God.
leg, her 2 hands. So tissue was removed from her abdominal muscle to create a flap to cover her artery, her femoral artery.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And why didn't they just use some of the tissue from the limbs they cut off?
Because it was all dead with flesh-eating bacteria in it.
So they created a flap that was covered with skin grafts taken from her right thigh, which oozed and scabbed. So, twice a day, lotion was applied to all her wounds.
Oh dear.
After
puts the lotion on its
skin. That's immediately what I thought.
After weeks, Aimee finally was able to get out of bed and go outside.
Oh my gosh.
On July 4th, 2 months after the accident, she was transferred to Atlanta. Oh my God. Atlanta Shepherd, which specializes in brain and spinal cord injury rehabilitation, to begin physical therapy.
Why is she there? Yeah.
I don't know. So, well, I mean,
that shit probably did move through her spinal cord or something.
Well,
no,
it said,
probably because of the loss of hands and leg.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
And the fact she's in bed for 2 months.
Well, also, like, because she doesn't have a leg anymore, so she probably needs to learn how to re-walk and stuff.
Yeah. Muscles probably atrophied and...
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
So the emotional pain started to set in, and that she would never be the same again.
I'm never going hiking again, just FYI.
Well, just don't go on a homemade zip line.
Yeah, I will never go on. I won't go on a non-homemade zip line. Zip lines are out for me.
Yeah. But she was getting physically stronger, learning her wheelchair, and working 3 hours a day with a physical therapist.
God, 3 hours.
So she got fitted with prosthetics.
Aimee, you're so strong.
So she's still alive today then?
Probably.
So she got fitted with prosthetics, but was having a lot of issues with her body image.
Oh, yeah.
A nurse gave her a doll and said, "Aimee, please remember, no body is perfect. This doll is handmade with imperfections because we're all made different. It's what you do with what you have that counts." And that last quote, "It's what you do with what you have that counts," always stuck with her and made her push through the physical therapy. She actually bikes, swims, kayaks, and this has been a big help in her recovery. She created the Aimee Copeland Foundation, which raises funds to build and run an inclusive wellness park and holistic therapy center in Atlanta.
All right.
So she has her own foundation. So she made something out of, her tragedy. But so she is doing well now.
Sounds like
she's helping others, and she's doing the things she loves still. So good job, Aimee.
I know. Well done.
Very proud.
Overcame after all.
Yeah, she did.
Okay, Geoff, it is time for your stories.
Well, we talk about stories of survival. Survival is kind of a broad term, right? What does it mean to survive? So,
oh my God. Webster's Dictionary.
I'm not Joel. Yeah, I'm not Joel.
Survival.
No, it's just, a couple of the things we've talked about, just kind of brought up some great memories from the past. And by great, of course, that I define that kind of loosely.
Are you talking about breaking your leg in that motorcycle accident?
No, I think Joel covered that. No, I think Joel covered that pretty well, although, we had a little bit different perspective on what happened. But at the end of the day, I had a broken leg, and we ended up in a van going home that way. But we'll save that for another day. But, we mentioned a zip line earlier, and poor Aimee and her experience on a zip line. But it just kind of reminded me of a story that, I had from about 10 years ago. Me and the family were going up to Silver Creek Falls, enjoying a nice weekend there with some friends. And they had these great little rope swings.
So wait, what time of year was this?
This was fall.
Fall,
so it was September.
So
actually, it was the very end of September.
It's still warm, sunny, but it's getting
It was kind of a misty, warmish, humid day, kind of overcast. But we were out there really enjoying it, wearing shorts. It was, still kind of warm out. And they had these rope swings. So they built these platforms. You climb up these ladders on these platforms. You go out and you swing on this rope.
That sounds fun.
With the idea that, you swing back and forth a couple times, and eventually you work your way down the rope and you drop off.
Okay, question. Was there like a piece of wood or something that you could sit on? Or did you have to hold...
There's a big knot on the rope.
So you're just holding on to the knot.
You're holding onto the rope, and then you kind of have the knot between your legs, and you're just kind of swinging out. It's a typical rope swing like you'd see over the water, but there was no water.
You want to know what would happen to me in that situation?
You just fall?
Yeah,
correct. You would hold on to it all.
I'd be like, well, it turns out I can't hold my own weight, and now I'm at the bottom of the rope and on the ground.
So I was a pretty athletic guy in high school, and I thought, well, this would be really fun. So instead of just swinging out and swinging back and forth like everybody else does, I'm going to swing out, and I'm going to come all the way back, and I'm going to jump and land on the platform, because that would be really, really cool, wouldn't it?
You're doing like a running start to the side, and you're going to circle around?
No, it wasn't quite that far. I did take like 3 or 4 steps, and I kind of ran out, so I'd have enough momentum to get all the way back to the platform. I had seen a few people do it and thought, okay, they were pretty close.
That was pretty
sweet. It's doable. It's definitely doable. So here I am, I'm out there, and there's this, where you go out, there's like an opening there's like a rail around it, there's an opening, and there's some posts there, so I thought, okay, worst case scenario, I could reach out and grab one of the posts and use it to pull myself up. So I go out there and I swing out, and this is, there's a couple different ones up there where you can do it, and this one was neat because it's about 4 feet off the ground, close to the platform, but it drops down pretty steeply, and as you go out, you end up 20 or 25 feet up over the ground. So it's really a neat experience, and then by the time you end up about 4 feet off, and you climb down and you let go.
Okay, wait. So the platform is kind of like on a hill, is what you're saying?
On a hill, yep.
Okay, and then you swing out.
There's
no water.
A little bit of a valley, yeah.
And then the hope is to come back up to the platform. Okay.
And you're just supposed to swing back and forth until you rest, and then you just climb down and let go.
And then you bring the rope up to the next person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but that's for amateurs.
Jeff's got to do it his own special way.
Yeah, of course, right? That's for amateurs because
those are for dumb bitches.
The real pros know that you swing out and you swing back and you land on a platform. You go ta-da, and everybody's like, "Ooh, look how great you are at this."
Yeah, that would be my plan.
Yeah, that was my plan, of course, and it may or may not have worked. So I swing out.
Okay.
And everything's going as planned. Get good momentum going out. On my way back, I'm like, okay, planning things out. I'm like, okay, well, not quite sure I'm going to make it all the way up, be able to do the ta-da thing, but I'm at least going to be able to put my feet up there, grab the hold of the post, and everything will be great.
Drag myself up, and then ta-da.
Exactly, yeah. And so that's the plan. So I do that, and I come up, and as I come up, like I said, I realize I'm going to have to grab that post, so I reach out to grab the post, so I let go of the rope with one hand, so I have a hold of the rope with one hand.
Oh, gosh.
But it's okay, because I'm going to grab that post, right? And I'm going to pull myself up. So I reach out for the post. Well, the post was a little bit lower than I thought it was, so when I reached out for it, I reached over the top of it and missed. So now I have one hand on the rope, and I'm starting to go backwards. And I'm realizing at that point, I'm starting to slide down the rope a little bit because, well, momentum, right? At that point, I was a little heavier than I am now, and gravity was doing what it does, and it's starting to drag me down the rope.
And now we're talking about Michelle.
Yeah. and so now we're, I'm to the point where I'm starting to go back out, and I'm looking down, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm about 5 feet off the ground now, and in about 3 seconds, I'm going to be out 25 feet off the ground. And there's pretty much no chance I'm going to hold onto this rope to get back. So I can let go now and hope for the best, or I can swing out further and hope that I don't slip off the rope, because if I do, I'm going to drop 25 feet down into the middle of these bushes. So I make the decision at that point that I'm just going to go ahead and slide down the rope and hope for the best. And of course,
I'm calling it.
Yeah. And so at that point I'm like, I'm just gonna let go, and every second I take, is another 5 feet of distance off the ground, so I have to make an immediate decision. So I just let go. And of course, I'm swinging down. All my kids are there with me. There's a gal and her husband up there, and she's about 9 months pregnant. She's due any moment now, and she's watching this whole thing happen as I'm falling off the rope. And so I fall, and when I know I'm falling, and I know I'm going to hit the ground. I know it's not going to feel very good. And so I hit the ground, and at that point I still had glasses before I had my LASIK surgery. And all I can think of is, okay, I need to tuck and roll because I'm slow. I'm going downhill. So I knew I was going to roll down the hill. The question is how far down the hill and how bad was it going to hurt. So I hit the hill. I kind of tuck my shoulder and I roll. And I managed to roll about 2 times. And at that point, I felt my feet hit the ground. So I pushed my feet up and I popped up. But in the process of rolling, I was afraid I was going to break my glasses. So as I'm rolling down the hill, one of the first things I do is I take my glasses and I throw them off to the side. As I'm rolling down, I rolled 2 more times. I hit my feet. I popped up and threw my hands up in the air and went, ta-da, like that. Everybody's looking at me in sheer horror, assuming I had just seriously hurt myself and or killed myself. Yeah. And the pregnant lady who was at the top of the hill was holding onto her stomach like she thought she was maybe going to go into labor at a moment because she was so scared. A couple of my children, a couple of my children were in tears. No, they seriously thought I had hurt myself. And other than a couple scrapes and bruises here and there, I actually ended up completely fine. Like nothing had even happened. But it was one of those situations where, of course you're trying to, show off for your children and, show everybody how great you are. And it
turns out you're just
not so much. Yeah. I'm just an average Joe after all.
So what happened to your glasses?
My glasses actually ended up fine. I picked them up, cleaned them up, put them back on. They were perfectly fine.
There we go.
And to this day, people still tell the story of Tarzan and my adventure going off the rope swing and how I landed I landed it perfectly.
Were you making a lot of grunting noises as you're like,
probably?
Oh.
I can't really say that I remember exactly what was being said or any words that may have come out of my mouth. Yeah. Or any of the things that I might have said to people at that time. I just remember getting up off the ground. And of course, going down the rope, I did end up with some pretty good rope burns in the process as well. Because I was wearing shorts. Hadn't even thought about that. And I didn't honestly feel that until an hour later when all the adrenaline finally wore off. And I realized, that actually kind of hurt a little bit. Yeah, it was not quite as fun as I remembered it being going down.
Oh no.
When I was in 8th grade, we all had to do this ropes course. No, they took us out to this fucking place.
Remember, she's young. When they went to school, they had safety nets.
Yeah,
and all those things.
That was like...
It's a completely different world than when we grew up. It's like, climb this rope 50 feet to the top of the gym and then climb back down again and don't fall and kill yourself, please.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. So that's what this was, is... I had a harness on and I had to climb, and it was like a platform that was 40 feet in the air. And then there was a trapeze thing going that you had to jump and try to catch it.
Oh my God.
And I was the first person up. And let me just keep in mind
How much had you drank at that point?
None. And I was so intensely shy at that point. I was embarrassed of everything in the world, and it was just, life was awful. So I'm just imagining myself I'm gonna catch it. I'm gonna be the hero at 8th grade. It's gonna be fucking awesome.
Gonna cheer.
Yeah, no, it's
the hero.
Incredible. This is what I'm imagining as I'm climbing up.
Okay.
And then I get up there and I'm like, I can fucking do this. I can do this. And so the swing comes over and I just jump with all my might, and then I fucking miss. And then the harness stops me as I'm falling. I make this. It's so loud. It was when I got to the and they had to lower me down, because I missed, and all the everyone around me is it was the worst.
As if you weren't already not popular.
As if fucking 8th grade wasn't suicidal already. You put us on a fucking ropes course. Oh, and then I think 9 out of 10 people fucking made it.
And you were the one that didn't.
I was the one that missed.
Oh my God.
Did you ever think that maybe that was just kind of foreshadowing the rest of your life?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought, and it was fucking true. Oh, no, it's not true. I'm a winner.
Just not.
Oh my god, now I'm sweaty. No, that was. Oh god, just life was so embarrassing back then, and that was like the worst case scenario.
Aww.
Making that really loud grunting noise.
I do remember a time when I was in college, and part of a student government group, and we decided we were going to take a ski trip, like a leadership bonding trip up to Mount Hood Meadows and go skiing. And I skied a ton in high school. I had my own skis, went every weekend, went up skiing. And so I thought this was going to be a blast, but at that point I didn't have my own equipment. I was married. I was way out of shape. Get up to the top of the mountain. At least this is what I've been told, because I honestly don't remember what happened that day. Just as a foreshadowing, okay? Let's just say that pretty much from the time where we were driving up and saw the sun coming up, that's about the last thing I remember from that day, of my own memory at least. So we get up to the top of the mountain, or we get up to Mount Hood Meadows, and we're putting on the equipment. The equipment didn't fit great, but you know, I made it work. And I'm putting on skis, and all my friends are putting on snowboards because, you know, kids of that generation snowboard, and I was a skier. Kids. I know, right? I thought, okay, this is going to be great. We're going to have a lot of fun. And of course, you know, it's been 6 years or so since I'd skied, but I'd skied
enough to feel you were comfortable.
So we get up to the top of a run, and we get off the lift, and there's a set of trees that kind of run down the middle, and on the left side there's this great run with a bunch of moguls in it. I thought, oh, that looks like a lot of fun. And on the other side is just a pretty straight run. Well, I'm looking at the moguls going, skis, moguls, that's going to be fun. And all the snowboarders are like, no, that's a hard pass. We don't go down moguls on a snowboard. So I said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's both go down, and I'll meet you where the runs come back together at the end of the tree line. And so what I understand is that when the snowboarders got down to where the run comes back together and I wasn't there, they were kind of surprised, but they hung out for a few seconds and didn't show up. And finally, they kind of started looking up the hill, kind of getting around the trees, looking up the hill, seeing if they could figure out where I was at.
And they just saw this snowball.
It wasn't quite that bad, but they have what they call a garage sale. And essentially a garage sale is when you look up the mountain and somebody skis in one place and their gloves in another. And so my equipment was all over the side of the hill. I was laying there dazed and confused, I guess would be the best way to put it. Come to find out from what the only thing that I can remember
gathered since
is that I must have caught an edge going through the moguls, but I ended up going down. So another gentleman who was on the mountain broke his leg, ended up going down the mountain in an ambulance, and I got to go with him. So I got to ride up on the bench, which they charge us both full price, by the way.
Of course.
And ended up going down to the hospital because I had a severe concussion. I could not remember anything about that day. All I could keep saying is the same three things. What happened? I must have caught an edge. Has anybody called my wife? They asked me things like my date of birth, my social security number, all that stuff. I could give them all that information, but they asked me,
what happened?
Where were we at? What were we doing? I couldn't answer any of those questions. The nurse would walk in and ask, show me her name tag, leave the room, walk back in, and ask me what her name was, and I couldn't tell you. Literally could not. My short-term memory was gone.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so they did a CAT scan, and come to find out I'd bruised the front and back of my brain. So when I'd gone through, I must have tumbled and hit the front and back of my head.
You must have hit hard.
So you didn't hit a tree?
No.
You just kind of fell hard on your head? Okay.
Yeah, and I can only guess that since I skied a lot, I was going through pretty aggressively, and you get some pretty good speed going through, and I must have just...
You must have caught an edge.
Got an edge, yeah. And which is a thing that happens, and just went right into the ground. And judging by the fact that one of my skis is about 20 feet up from me, and one of my gloves is down the hill, garage sale style. Yep. And so that ended up being a day that was ever in infamy. And when I graduated, they actually gave me a T-shirt that had those same 3 lines printed across them with a picture of a skier tumbling down a hill on it.
I wish I had that shirt now. Do you still have it?
I don't think I do anymore. I wish I did. I don't know what happened to it, but I do wish I did, because from that day forward, my wife's like, "You're never skiing again." Doctor's like, "Why didn't you wear a helmet?" I'm like, nobody wore a helmet back then. I'm like, nowadays, of course, I get it. You wear a helmet to do anything anymore.
Do people wear helmets?
People wear helmets all the time now when they ski and snowboard.
I guess.
But back in my day, you would have been laughed off the mountain. You're not wearing a helmet up there. They wouldn't let you on the ski lift if you were wearing a helmet.
I took private snowboarding lessons for a long time. I did nothing but catch edges. Like, that poor guy, he was like, you got to do a falling leaf. So you just sort of slide down the hill just like this. And no.
And here comes Michelle.
Yeah, fucking fall. And I never made it off the lift on my snowboard. Skis, different story, but on my snowboard without falling on my ass every single time and riding my snowboard down to the bottom. I just fucking sucked at snowboarding.
I had never been skiing or snowboarding.
Say what? For real?
Yeah.
That was 19 years ago. I've not been on a pair of skis again since then.
Yeah, it's been probably about that for me.
I went inner tubing.
That's fun.
Inner tubing is fun.
Yeah.
That would be a good winter.
So one last story, going back to the whole hyperbaric chamber. Fortunately, I have another fun story from when we were in Hawaii.
So this is recent.
This is very recent. This is going back just a couple months.
Wow.
Had a great trip to Hawaii.
May of 2019.
Wow.
I almost said 17, and I knew that wasn't right.
No. We were lucky enough to go spend 10 days in Maui, and as part of that, we scheduled a couple dive days.
I don't dive, so I hung out and chatted with the captains.
Nice.
Couple sunburn days for her. That's what she scheduled.
Yeah, oh shit. Like, I did not put enough sunscreen on the first time, and I was on the top deck of the boat for like, I don't even know how long you guys were gone, 2 or 3 hours. No. I was just chatting away. Yeah, you guys.
10 minutes.
It's like 40 minutes at a time, 2 times.
Well, 2 times, yeah. And I was up there the whole time.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And we did get to see some whales the first time we went out.
Yeah, it was like, the captain was like, shut that boat down. He's like, this is very rare. All the pods of whales have left Maui already. And so, and it had its little calf with it, right?
Calf, mom and a dad.
Adorable.
What kind of whale?
Humpback.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was the very last of the season.
He was like, I can't even believe we're seeing these right now. So he figured it was probably a late birth. And, they were waiting for the calf to gain enough. How much did they gain a day? 300 pounds?
No, something, 300 or 400 pounds.
A day.
It was ridiculous.
How much
Sounds
they
like
gain weight.
Oh,
that's good times.
So
okay, back to Maui.
Yeah, so we went out for our first dive day. Everything went great. We had a good time. No problems at all. Second time, we decided we're going to go do a little bit more challenging dive because, well, we were all advanced divers. We've dove a number of times, and so we scheduled this dive for the backside of the Molokini Crater, which is one of the most phenomenal dives I guess you can do in all of Hawaii. And we just thought it'd be a lot of fun. But unfortunately, the weather was a little bit rough, so they ended up having to drop us off at the tip of the crater, and we're going to have to kind of go around the backside of the wall. Well, it gets pretty deep pretty quick, which is generally not an issue.
What kind of dive was that? It was a specific name.
Drift dive.
Drift dive.
Yeah.
So what is
that? It means there's a little bit of current under the water. So normally when you dive, you go underwater and you swim around and you go see things, and then when you're done, you go back up to the surface.
And you're just pretty close to where the boat is
the
whole time.
Yeah, you just kind of make a circle generally, and you come back to the boat. Well, in drift diving, it's a little bit different because there's a little bit of current under the water. So you basically float along with the current, and the boat kind of follows you up above and then picks you up wherever you end up. So the idea was we were going to drift along the backside of this crater, and then they would pick us up somewhere around the midpoint of the crater because the backside was pretty rough right then, and so they didn't want us to get all the way to the back. That's why they dropped us off where they did.
I'm chatting with the captain this whole time, so we didn't notice anything was going on.
So, and it was interesting on this particular dive. It's an advanced dive. They require you have at least 30 dives in the past, and that you've dove within the last 6 months.
Oh, and there was this guy who showed up, and how many dives did he have? Like 3?
6.
6. Yeah, it was like a ridiculously small number of dives compared to everyone else that, there's me who has had 0 dives, so I wasn't going anywhere. And then this guy, the captain was like, how did you even get approved for this dive? And he's like, oh, I registered online. He's like, that's how you got through. And I was like, this is going to be a weird day.
Oh.
And it was.
And he's like, yeah, we'll let you on anyway. And I was like, what?
So we should have known that was an omen.
Yeah, I mean, the first boat we were on was nice, and they had all these delicious snacks, and they, all kinds. It was just the whole situation was
first
good.
Class.
Yeah, exactly. It was like the captain was really on his game. He was showing us all these things. It was just a really well planned trip. And then this other trip was a little sketchier. It was like the boat was a little scarier. And then there was another guy with us he like did some snorkeling, and he did these like free dives where he was under the water for like 4 minutes straight. Like I was like, how is this humanly possible? And he's like, you want to go snorkeling with me? And I was like, I don't.
No, sir.
And another one of the guys was actually from Hawaii, and he had something like 1,000 log dives, that's a lot of time underwater.
Yeah. Oh, there was one other guy with us. So there was the three of our friends. So Geoff, Carrie, his wife, and Joel, my husband, of course. And then the guy with 6 dives, and then the guy with 1,000 dives.
Wow.
And so that was
our group plus the dive master who was with us.
Okay. So, and then the captain's just yelling at us the whole time.
So, as we're setting our gear up like we always do, I had a new dive computer. It's a really cool high-tech dive computer, and the dive master wanted to look at it because he'd never seen one before and wanted to play with it a little bit, and he did. And so we turned on our tanks, turned them off like you always do to pressurize the system. And then we go to, when we're going getting ready to dive, I go to turn on my tank like you always do. You turn it all the way on, and then you turn it back a quarter turn because you don't want it quite open all the way. Not really thinking about it, really excited to get in the water. Like I said, it had been real rough. The water was kind of choppy, so we were just wanting to get our gear on and get in the water. Go through all this, get in the water quickly, not really paying attention to all the things that they teach you when you become a scuba diver. Some of the safety checks maybe we didn't do as good of a job on. Anyway, so
they're advanced divers. We are. They should have known all this shit by now.
So we get in the water, and we go down to about 20 feet, and we're waiting for everybody to get in the water. And the kid with 6 dives was nowhere to be found. He just disappeared. We have no idea where he went. He just got in the water and took off. And so
he probably drifted away.
So we're sitting there, and the dive master is basically telling us to hold on, that he's going to have to go find this guy because we can't go by ourselves. You got to be with at least one other person when you're going.
Right.
So we spend about the first 5 minutes with the dive master going to try to find this guy who was not even supposed to be with us, let alone by himself. And then he finally finds him and comes back.
Drifting away.
And we start to go down, and this is called a wall dive because it's a sheer wall, and you kind of dive down the wall because there's lots of cool things to see around the wall. There's a lot of sea life. There's going to be sharks and turtles and fish and everything around.
Yeah, that's why I didn't go.
And as we start going down, we get to about 80 feet in depth, and all of a sudden my regulator, which is your breathing device, the thing that supplies you oxygen out of your tank, started getting a little tough. Like it was getting hard to breathe out of it. And I thought, well, maybe I'd gotten some sand or something in it. So I'm doing all the things they teach you on how to try to clear it. I pulled it out. I blew through it. Even stuck my fingers through some of the portholes to try to check it. Still wasn't working well. I pulled out my...
So are you just like... sucking as hard as you possibly can?
Yeah, so I'm sucking as hard as I can, and I'm getting about a half a breath out of it.
Oh.
Yeah, so, and for about a minute it was okay, right? Because I'm getting enough air, but not quite enough to really feel like I'm getting
enough air.
Yeah.
So finally, after about a minute, and that not working in my secondary, so you always have a second, it's called an octopus, and I put that in my mouth, and it was no better. I thought, okay, something's going on here. So the person who was closest to me was my wife.
And this is a different regulator than you had the first dive, right? Because didn't you buy a regulator when you were there?
No. This was my same regulator. So I thought maybe something had happened to it in the interim, like it got banged or something had happened to it, because I'd had it checked out before we went on the trip.
Okay.
And so I'm starting to kind of not panic, but starting to get a little nervous because I'm getting to the point where I'm feeling like I'm not getting enough air, and I'm starting to almost feel like I'm going to hyperventilate.
Oh my god! Like I'm getting ready to hyperventilate.
And keep in mind, I'm 85-ish feet underwater, and at that depth, if I try to go up, I'm not going to have enough air to get to the top, like in a breath, and B, I'm likely to get the bends from it, which could cause me all kinds of other medical issues. It's when the nitrogen releases too fast, and you get sick and you have to go to a hyperbaric chamber like we talked about earlier.
Is it nitrogen bubbles in your blood?
It's nitrogen bubbles, yeah. So it comes out of your blood too quickly. So you get nitrogen in your blood from breathing the air. Okay. And what happens is that you get these little bubbles of gas in your blood, and as you go up slowly, it slowly comes out. It's perfect. But if you go up too quickly, it comes out too quickly and you get nitrogen poisoning, and so you got to go into an oxygen chamber to fix it.
Hyperbaric chamber, as we learned earlier.
Yes.
So, of course, that was not an option. You learn that pretty quickly in diving. Like, that's the number one rule. Don't ever just shoot to the surface.
Like, that is a worst case scenario.
That is, if you're going to die, you do that. Well, I wasn't to the point where I felt like I was going to die. So I looked around me to see who was close, and my wife was the closest person around me. Or actually, Joel, at that point, was the closest person around me. and I went to reach to grab his
and
secondary octopus.
you son of a bitch, I'm not giving you any of my...
Pretty much. He had his back turned to me, and I reached to grab his octopus. I was going to grab his octopus and then grab his BCD, his tank area, to hold on to him, to let him know I was there. Well, I reached for it, and he swam off, and so I got nothing.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and he didn't know I was there, so it was not intentional. And then so I look around.
Kick you in the face.
No, he might as well have, though. And so I look around again, and Carrie's just a few feet in front of him, and so I swim over to Carrie, and I grabbed her octopus, and I put it in my mouth, and I went to reach to grab her onto her, because when you grab somebody's air, you should really hold on to them, too, because you just have a hold of a hose, essentially.
Yeah,
and to let her know, she had no idea what was going on, so she was kind of like kicking at me, thinking I was just getting too close to her and trying to push me off. Yeah, and of course I'm trying to breathe off of this, because at that point I was not getting hardly any air.
Oh no!
And so finally I grabbed a hold of her and I pulled her back towards me in the water and like showed her that I had a hold of her air and I was breathing it. And then she got the instructor's, the dive master's attention. The dive master turns around and goes, try to figure out what's going on. We're underwater, so we're doing hand signals, and I'm like, I have no air. So I showed my wife, and so the dive instructor, we're trying to tell the dive instructor what's going on. Well, the gentleman who had been with who was with us, the one that had 1,000 dives, immediately recognized what was going on. He was just a little ways away, and he saw what was going on. He's like, "Oh, I've seen this before. His tank isn't all the way on." So what had happened when we were at the surface was apparently either I had turned it on and not turned it off, or the dive instructor, when he was checking my computer out, had turned it on and not turned it off. Well, when I got to it to go turn it on, I apparently turned it off, and then I turned it back a quarter turn. Well,
dude, lefty loosey, righty tighty.
But again, we were. That's what I'm saying. I know that, right? But we were in such a hurry, I didn't pay any attention. Well, and at 20 feet, being open a quarter of the way, no problem, right?
Oh.
But as you get deeper, the air compresses.
Oh.
And so that little opening, that little opening gets littler and littler. So I basically took that quarter opening and quartered that, and that's why I wasn't getting enough air.
Wow.
Well, he had seen it so many times, he came over and turned on the air on my tank as the instructor grabbed my regulator, stuck it in his mouth, he starts breathing on it. He's like, "There's nothing wrong with this."
What the fuck is wrong with you, man?
Exactly. And I'm like, "What?" No, I'm like, "No, it's not working." And he's like, does it again. And he's like, "It's fine."
Like, give me that.
Yeah, and so he gives it back to me, and I'm like, "It's fine." And I had no idea, because I didn't feel him, because there's so much commotion going on. I didn't feel him turning on my tank. I'm like, okay, well, that's strange. Okay, so I stuck it in my mouth, and I told Carrie, to stay close to me, because we were going to dive as buddies, just in case I had another problem again. Yeah. It's buddies. Yeah, you dive as buddies. And so we do that, and so the dive, between the delay and waiting, trying to find the guy who went missing, and then this regulator, the dive did not go well. But he still wanted us to see as much of it as possible, so we're diving through, and generally the rule of diving is when you hit 500 psi of air, you start at 3,000. When you hit 500, that's the rule that you go up. And so throughout the dive master will usually ask you how much air you have, and they'll ask you to check your tank, check your gauge, and you tell them how much air you have by giving them hand motions. Well, as I got close to 500 pounds, I went up to him, I showed him I had 700 pounds left. He's like, "Okay, we're still okay." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." And then I got down to 500, and I'm like, 500, I need to go up. And I gave him the hand motion to go up. And he's like, no, you're okay. I'm like, so again, I'm like, no, 500. And he's like, no, you're okay. I'm like, okay. And so we go another little bit, and then I got down to 400. And I went over to where he was at. I tapped him and said, 400, I need to go up. And he's like, no, you're okay. So finally I showed him the gauge, because I thought maybe he wasn't understanding what I was telling him.
He's like, no, it's fine.
So I show him, and his solution was not go up like you're supposed to do, because you got to go up and do a safety stop for 3 minutes. Okay. You go up to 15 feet, and you sit there for 3 minutes, and that's when the nitrogen bubbles out and everything is good. So his solution was not to go up like I was supposed to do, but was to hand me his octopus and basically just tell me I was going to dive right next to him. So we kept diving for another 5 minutes while I was breathing on his air.
Wow.
And then, and throughout that time, and then finally, he's like, "Okay, you can go up," because Joel at that point had run out. And so we both went up together and we did our safety stop. Well, by the time I got out of the water, I had like 50 PSI left, which meant if there had been any issues whatsoever, I was out of air.
Oh, God.
And we get up to the surface, and the
captain fucking reamed him.
Yeah, he's like, "You should never come up with that little air. You always got to come up, with at least 300 PSI after your safety stop and all that."
And then he was like going on and on about how he has to have the tank service now and like all this shit. And I was like, this is very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
He's like, dude,
and I'm
air.
like, dude, yeah. And I'm like, it's your guys' fault. I wanted to go up, and he kept telling me no, I couldn't go up. And in hindsight, I should have just gone up.
Yeah.
Right?
He's like, well, this is an advanced dive. You can make your own decisions.
Yeah. Well, the problem is though, it's also a drift dive, which means that I didn't know where the boat was, and if I pop up and the boat wasn't there, I risk getting slammed into the rocks or anything else that could happen because the weather was not great. And so we get up and come to find out the guy's like, the guy with 1,000 dives who had fixed my tank. I'm like, I don't get it. It wouldn't breathe. And the dive master's like, it was fine. We're talking at this, on the boat at this point. And the guy behind me, or the guy with 1,000 dives comes up behind me. He's like, oh yeah, your tank wasn't on. I came up behind you and turned it on. That's why it worked. So either me or the dive master, we don't know who. And at this point, it's my own fault for not checking to make sure I went lefty-loosey, not righty-tighty. But here I was at 80 feet with no regulator that was working.
Wow.
And unfortunately, that is not the first time that's happened to me, because if it had been, I probably would have just chalked it up to whatever. But when I was getting my advanced certification, I was 35 feet down and my regulator quit, and we were up in Washington with no visibility. I couldn't see anybody or anything.
No.
And it quit, and my backup did not work. Completely failed. And my primary completely failed, and at that point I had no choice but to just surface.
Oh my god!
And my regulator was done. I mean, as a matter of fact, I ended up throwing it away because it had broken, and you can't really. I'm never gonna want. I'm not. Well, I mean, you could rebuild it again, but if one completely fails on you underwater, I got rid of the primary and the secondary, because if they can both fail, I mean, how much faith are you gonna ever have in that again, right?
Yeah.
I just have this picture of myself like surfacing with my mask above and just nothing but like mascara, because I've been crying like the whole time.
So I learned a very valuable lesson that day, and that is that
righty-tighty, lefty-loosey.
Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. But no matter how much of a hurry you're in, you still got to go through the steps. I mean, no matter what, you can't rush it, because at 85 feet, I mean, like I said, there's not enough air to even get to the surface, let alone what would have happened had I actually done it.
Yeah.
Well, luckily you're with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, you always dive in groups, and that's
I would have had the bends and been crying.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. That's why they require advanced divers do that. Well, first of all, a regular certified diver is only allowed to go down to 60 feet.
Oh,
because at 60 feet, if you were to surface, you're probably still going to get the bends, but maybe not
so bad.
Yeah. But any deeper than that, you're really risking it, and you got to do your stops. And
are the bends fatal?
They can be. Yeah.
Can they?
If you don't get treatment right away, they absolutely are. A lot of people die from it.
Oh shit!
But the biggest thing though is that you just got to know not to just surface, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because it would have been easy for me to take off my weight belt and just go up, or try anyway. But no, you got to keep your head about you. You got to make sure you go through the steps, right? So the next step is to check my own secondary air source, and that didn't work. And then to try to get the buddies there.
I guess you can't see behind you.
You
or
can't.
anything.
You can't really. I mean, you kind of can reach, but when you have all that gear on, reaching.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no reason to think that my tank was not turned on, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You're thinking all the other things that could go wrong that would cause it. And you test it before you go down. It's the very first thing you do. You put it in your mouth, you breathe through it outside of the water. Then as soon as you get in the water, you're breathing off of it. So
but
we're
you could
sitting
breathe
at 20
fine
feet, it was breathing fine. Yeah.
Okay. So how many dives have you been on?
I think I have a total of about just under 40 dives total now.
Dang.
Okay.
Would you ever scuba dive, Caitlin?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Would you?
I would, yeah.
I don't know if I could handle it. Underwater creatures scare me
Oh,
pretty
it's
bad.
a lot of fun.
I mean, I know you have to have strong lungs. I have asthma, so I don't know if I could.
I had asthma as a child. Honestly, the lungs are not the biggest thing. It's how well you do with air. So my wife sips air. She can be underwater for an hour, hour and a half. Me, it's like 40 minutes and I'm done. Because
you and
I
Joel
breathe
both
heavier,
were kind of.
Okay.
I feel like I would be an air sipper.
Yeah.
I do a lot of meditation and can just sort of barely breathe.
Typically, before we'd go on these trips, we'd go, swim for, go to the courthouse and swim over and over and over again a bunch of times just to kind of get your lungs in swimming shape.
Uh-huh.
But no, it's actually very easy. And underwater, it's actually much easier to breathe. The regulator almost forces air into your lungs. So it's really easy. The key is actually not letting it just, force the air in. So you got to sip it in. Because if you breathe too heavy, you can literally almost watch the gauge kind of go down.
Oh gosh, this has been fun.
Yes.
Should we do another shot?
Maybe we should.
Maybe just one more. Here, Caitlin.
She doesn't have to drive. She's talking like as many shots as she get in there.
I know.
You should at least save Joel a drink of that.
We will. We'll give him the rest.
He might be sad.
You know which one I also like, which I didn't see there, is that Marionberry liqueur.
Oh, I don't think we looked for it though.
No, I just looked for this one.
Yeah. Okay, so
should we have a?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we definitely.
Or maybe do you want to?
Let's close it out and then take a shot at the end.
I think Michelle should tell a story.
So,
I did tell a story.
She did.
Oh, that is true.
I
Michelle
tell like 3 and then she'll cut it.
2 of them maybe. You get one.
2 or 3.
Yeah.
No more than 3 though. Don't worry. She won't cut any more than that.
Well, thank you, Jeff, so much. Those were interesting
absolutely.
stories.
Yeah.
Holy shit! I don't have a survival story, so oh my gosh.
Oh, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh,
unfortunately, I have this great combination of very good reflexes and very bad luck. So it means I survive a lot of really shitty situations. I mean, we didn't even talk about like Boneyard's birthday ride when we had like the earth opened up and swallowed us for a short period of time.
Oh,
and
God.
some of those fun things, yeah.
Well, you probably deserved it.
Really? Yeah, I don't think so.
We'll probably have you and Joel back together.
Oh my God. Yeah,
you better schedule about 6 hours.
She's like, I know.
Yeah. And lots of liquor.
Not.
Oh my God.
Well, thank you for the drink suggestion. That's super delicious.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I'm going for my girly drinks, I gotta say.
And
the peach drinks were freaking delicious.
Well, peaches are in season, so you can go on the
right.
peaches, right?
Nicely
and
done.
Thank you for coming and being on the podcast. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I hope you bleep out most of what I said.
For sure.
And we will.
All right. Cheersies.
Cheers.
All right.
Woo.
All right. So you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook at I Should Totally Be Dead Right Now. Or you can send us a story of your survival at ishouldtotallybedeadrightnow@gmail.com, and we will read it on the podcast. And yeah, so we will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.